Yes, welcome to set 2. I want to preface this video by saying the following cards are all subject to change, and likely will get tweaked entirely by the time set 2 testing is concluded. But I won't waste your time on a long intro this time around, because unlike my Nation Breakdown series, which you should totally watch to get an idea of how each nation works, we will have the entire set to cover in only 2 videos, so let's hop right into Blaze. A big gimmick of set 2 is many nations have entirely new themes to play with. Starting right off with Blaze's new type, Storm Dragon, focusing around this big, thick dragon named Raijin, who has Defender, meaning he must be attacked before other allies do their life, and a free re-engage when it wins a battle once per turn. Plus, at a swift speed, he can gain power for every ally the opponent controls at the cost of only 1 discard. However, this ally might read extremely powerful, but it has the caveat that it can be the only ally you control. This should set the theme for Storm Dragons as the spotlight hoggers that they are, demanding a solo performance but compensating with giant, throbbing, attractive abilities. This die is so powerful that they have a level 2 ally that simply does the ancient Bushido Dragon effect that searches this die. Needless to say, Raijin is your all-star, so you better make it so you can get your game on and go play him. Raijin isn't the only spotlight hog, however. Downburst Dragon and Updraft Dragon either search for any Storm Dragon or draw a card when destroyed respectively, but only while they are your only ally you control. And the theme has several allies who give you additional bonuses for only controlling 1 ally. Spirit Stance Dragon can exile himself for loss to give you a free unexpend. Lightning Speed Dragon can bounce a Storm Dragon to your hand by discarding a card when an ally attacks. Great Boom Dragon can exile itself to blow up an aura your opponent controls. Bolt Fist Dragon can exile itself to do 1 point of burn damage. And Dojo Healer can exile itself to gain 1 life when you take damage. But all of these effects only work if you control a single ally. So as you can see, the main 2 themes are play 1 big fuck off dude, and play a bunch of small toolbox effects out of the Lost Area for a huge advantage. To aid with this, they have 2 Storm Dragon specific vanillas, Raitaro and High Velocity Dragon, which are certainly vanillas. Yep. Storm Dragon also has plenty of spells of its own, Gathering Clouds allowing you to discard any Storm Dragon to draw 2, Just Front allowing you to return a Storm Dragon to the hand to draw a card, and Raiken Ryu Tempo allowing you to, once per turn, discard or sacrifice a Storm Dragon to draw 1 card. These 3 spells aid with your consistency and dumping of Storm Dragons respectively, allowing you to turbo for your boss monster, and returning allies to hand with dust and clear up your field if your opponent decides to start face taming you. The final 2 Storm Dragon spells are 2 combat tricks in the form of Neverending Storm, which gives you a pulse field, but only if you control 1 ally, and it can also cast itself from the Wasp by discarding a Storm Dragon, so long as it exiles itself after it finishes up. And Fist Faster Than Lightning boosts an ally's power by 5k until end of turn, and can be cast when discarded for Raijin and ignoring its spend costs. But do keep in mind, this isn't a Swift, so you're only using it on the opponent's turn via Raijin. Closing off Blaze, we have some support cards for set 1 decks. Armored Dragon gets several new allies in the form of Armored Shield Dragon, Morale Booster, Second Blade Dragon, and Drakonic Rampager, who all give very versatile re-engaging, defender, removal, and stat boosting effects respectively, alongside a new thick Nexus boss monster in the form of Musashi. Remember how I said wait for set 2 to play those Nexus cards in the Blaze video? Well, here's why. Musashi can evolve itself onto any other Nexus and do so at a swift speed, and when doing so, he continues any battles that Nexus was already doing. Also, when invoked by evolving during your turn, he gains power equal to the highest power among allies your opponent controls, and has the usual Nexus perma to gain power, in this case 5k for every ally in play. This guy is absolutely the payoff the Nexus support needed, as he's basically a big go fuck yourself on the opponent's turn, throwing off attack orders, and even when played on your turn, he's guaranteed to be the biggest, fattest chungus you've ever seen, and even ramps onto the level 4 for some Spirit Ramp. There's also some new spells here, Form Your Squads, which simply checks the top 5 of your deck for an Armored Dragon and adds it to your hand, Emergency Deployment, which lets you at a swift speed recycle any Armored Dragon ally from your Lost Area, and also gives the next Armored Dragon you invoke 10k, provided it's the only thing you control. These 2 cards provide amazing recycling and consistency, and should certainly bolster your strategy. Fire also gets some support in the form of an amazing level 4 Masira Liberated Pyromancer, who when invoked checks the top 4 of your deck for any Blaze spell and adds it to your hand at no cost, and can also just for free reduce the level of your opponent's entire board by 1. This lady is insane for making your fire spells detonate even larger allies when accompanied by set 1's penultimate casting, and your Temple Trap can certainly blow up level 4 allies when comboed. Smolder Pyromancer is another utility wizard who unexpends a spirit once per turn when an ally is destroyed by a card effect, and your new spell Whelp Flame simply destroys any level 2 or lower restrained ally your opponent controls at no cost, giving you even more fuel for your opponent. Our final 2 cards are Dragon Lord support in the form of Blackscale Sturge, which can evolve onto any level 5 Dragon Lord to unexpend 2 Spirit. He's alright, but the fact I can't put him on Dragon Spawn limits his usefulness, as the stat boost is usually only 1k from Igneal, so best wait for a few more cards before getting too excited for this guy. And finally we have Tempest of Flames, a generic blaze spell that at swift speed can destroy any level 2 or lower restrained ally your opponent controls, provided you have a level 5 ally in play, of course. This is absolutely insane for fucking up attacks, but much like a certain Abyss card we'll get into in the second video, your opponent will probably start hard playing around this once they see it, so keep that in mind when experimenting. Overall, Blaze's new Storm Dragon deck is quite powerful. Raijin is nothing to scoff at, and the toolbox of Exile and Sacrifice effects make Astral or Abyss splashing tempting. So don't write it off for the one ally gimmick. The new support for Armor Dragon Fire is also extremely powerful, so don't underestimate Masira, or your board might just end up exploding. Blaze isn't the only addition to get a new game plan. Set 2 introduces Giant Insect, a powerful class that focuses on emptying their hand as quickly as possible to resolve their new boss monster. That being Hive Terror Death Stinger, who while your hand is empty can invoke a level 3 totem with 20k power that has the effects of 2 of your Giant Insects in Lost. This can be used for powerful board clearing and resource stamina combined. Just remember the token does get sacked at the end of the turn. The main theme of Giant Insects is having no hand cards or few, so it can be tricky to balance, so keep that in mind. Invertebrate Jumper can invoke a level 2 or lower insect from your Lost area, provided it can't attack directly and gets sacked at the end of the turn, and Hive Soldier just gives your entire board 5k power while your hand is empty. Gate Mantis is just a level 3 with 19k that can't be destroyed by card effects, and Phantasmal Maiden can re-engage itself when you have no hand, at the cost of crippling its power for the turn. Lieutenant and Chaotic Beetle bring up the level 2 slots, with Beetle getting 15k while you have no hand at the cost of sacking it the turn you use its effect, and Lieutenant is a Foolish Barrel for any level 3 or lower Giant Insect. Realistically, these two are both incredible and worth playing, and should not be underestimated. The final insect in the swarm is Mutant Pest, who, when invoked, discards a hand card, draws a card, then discards again. If this card wasn't in Giant Insect, it would be an abomination, but since you need no hand, he has a pretty good stat line, you run 3 of this guy. The main thing that makes bees swarm, though, is Giant Nest and Gathering Swarm, with Nest once per turn discarding a hand card to invoke a level 3 or lower insect from your Lost, and Swarm just being Necromancy for any Giant Insect if it's the only spell in your hand. Nest is absolutely the thing that turns your entire deck online, and Gathering Swarm is necessary to keep your Jumper online and flowing. Finally, you have Eye of the Swarm, which is just Oncoming Horde but for Giant Insects. Ultimately, this deck is pretty complicated to pilot, but it's worth experimenting if Stinger and Jumper pique your interest. In terms of support for the old, though, we have some powerful Shaman support that I covered in my Shaman deck profile, but to recap, Chief of the Shaman tribe Odon to go into any level 4 or higher Shaman, and when evolved, boost all allies summoned from the Spirit during their turn by 1 level and 4k power. And when invoked in any means, lets you swap a face-up card in your Spirit with any card in your deck. This deck is pretty fun for searching your deck for Spirit triggers and dumping them from the deck, but personally I find them just slightly a bit win-more, so play by preference. The other new big Shaman is Bountiful Nature Maiden Jasmine, who I made an entire fucking video about, but right now, when invoked, she targets allies in Spirit who always levels are 2 or less and allows you to invoke them at any time by placing a hand card into your Spirit Restraint, albeit having to shuffle it back at the end of the turn. She might not appear that great on paper, but good stats and no cost means that she's very easy to swap down on various level 1s and 2s, and that just ignore that clause, and play Spirit triggers from your hand for extra advantage. I prefer playing 2, but I could see you running 3. Alluring Treefolk is a Sylvan that goes onto any level 4 Primal that can target a restrained ally your opponent controls and replace it with one from their Spirit to have some decent removal. Beastly Ghost is an amazing level 3 that can easily recycle anything it evolves onto with its effect. Apprentice Shaman Marquis has Shaman Protection and can discard a hand card to draw a new one, or draw 2 if you control level 3 or higher Shaman. Eolf Master of the Woodlands can sacrifice a beast to save itself from destruction, and when you invoke another Primal, allows you to check the top 7 of your deck for a Shaman or Beast aura and add it to your hand. This guy is only going to get better with time, keep an eye on him. In terms of spells, Prosperity of the Woodlands and Marquis Bestiary are absolutely staple in any sort of Shaman deck, with Prosperity being an archetypal recharge, and Bestiary giving you access to all your level 3 or lower beasts so you want to control a small Shaman. You run 3. The final spell to talk about is Tag Out, which swaps out an engaged Shaman with a beast in your Spirit with the same level, but shuffles it back at the end of the turn. This can be pretty neat to get out some cards like Genka using a Eolf, but honestly, in set 2, I don't like this personally due to the lack of meaningful interactions. That's not to say it's bad though. keep an eye on it, as this will probably get better in the future as more support comes out. Overall, Primal's new giant insects do leave something to be desired. They're quite complex and a bit tricky to get working, but the new Shaman support is very, very solid and makes the deck even better going into set 2. Back in the Holy Land? Well, the new Knights seem to think so, whose damage is absorbing the allies they kill into their core. Think of it like it sees materials from Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's time for a crusade, and who better to represent the Knights than a giant robot? The Knight boss is a level 5 mecha that has the generic Knight effect of absorbing anything it kills into its core, and it also gets 1k power times the level of any allies in its core, and it's unaffected by non-Haven spells. This guy has one job: kill big guy, get big, not die. It's pretty simple to understand, but you shouldn't underestimate it. Simple is very easy to get strong after all. Our level 4 Knight is Cassius, who does the Knight damage of absorbing whenever it kills into its core, and by discarding one such ally from its core, can destroy any ally your opponent controls with less power than what you discarded. Campaign Champion gains 1k power for every ally in its core, and lets you engage any Haven ally you control at the end of the turn with a card in its core at no cost. And the other level 3 Siege Engine Trebuchet, which is actually a ballista, and to be honest is just a medieval mecha, gains 3k power while it has something in its core. The normal Knight defeated allies due to its core effect, and by discarding an ally from its core, you can blow up a spell with aura and give itself +1 level until end of turn. These two are absolutely powerhouses with versatile effects that you should absolutely take advantage of. And the other piece of siege weaponry is Siege Engine Catapult, who, while it has core, from its effect can be destroyed by card effects, and by discarding an ally from its core, can cripple an ally's power by 4k until the end of the turn. Both this and the Trebuchet can also gain core by evolving onto an ally who's level 2 or 3 respectively, making them very easy and versatile to turn on. Our final level 2 Knight, Headstrong Disciple, simply has the Knight effect and boosts all Haven allies by 2k while they have a card in their core, making it very easy to get large Knights across the board. The final Knights are Frontline Zealot, who has the Knight effect and has a trait that when a Knight its core is destroyed in battle, you get to draw one card, and Warband Crusader, who just has the standard Knight effect under its stat line. Overall, Knights are very simple, but consistent in their playstyle. They take allies of they kill into their core for effects, and gain large stats and toolboxing as a result. They do have a pair of spells, Martyrdom, which lets you return a Knight to the hand by discarding an ally from its core, and Rites Before Battle, that lets you send a Knight from Lost Area into the core of one of your Knights in the field. For you Angel viewers out there, you are SOL because there is no support for you here. Wait till later sets. Instead, Celestials get support with the new fat Chungus Heavenly Sky Deity Vitkuros Autarch, who I probably butchered the name. He evolves onto any level 5 Celestial Lord, and while evolving onto Vitkuros specifically, he can come out for free. He straight up says, you cannot lose the game, just as a promo. Rules don't matter. If he's out, you cannot lose the game. Fuck you, fuck your opponent, and there's no losing here. But if he is involved, it also makes him untargetable by all spells and effects, and makes it so any damage you would take instead heals you for the same amount. This guy is absolutely batshit insane on paper, and if you can protect him with Celestial Defensive Toolbox, you can very easily get yourself into an insane position. His protection means you can't cheese to get rid of him with stuff like Malicious Execution, so building around the deity is absolutely the way to go. The new level 4 Haldir unexpends 1 spirit whenever it gets engaged by any means, either by card effect or just for start of turn. Reactivator Drone lets you engage any ally you control whenever this ally is attacked. Moving Beacon is just a level 1 with Defender, and Energized Patrol engages itself for free when it supports Celestial in battle. As you can see, these new allies are very defensive, and Haldir gives you some nice unspending resources, so it is very easy to see the game plan of Protect the Castle here. They got 2 new spells of their own, Aspect Ascension, which can discard any Celestial to add a Celestial Lord from deck to hand, and Celestial Code Recovery, which draws you 1 card whenever an engaged Celestial would be destroyed. You max out on Recovery and play Aspects by preference. The rest of these are generic, so we'll just start with the Cleric of the Order Judas, which can evolve onto any level 3 Haven, and when it does so, you can add any Haven spell from Lost Area to hand for absolutely free. And when it is destroyed, you can add High Class Mage Judas specifically from its core to your hand. This is obviously designed to evolve onto the OG Judas, an already good card, and get extra value from it. But it is a nice spell recycling even without it. It's a +1 when evolving, or if you play down Judas, it's actually a +2. The final 2 spells here are Absolute Line, which lets you engage up to 2 allies you control at the end of the turn for no cost, perfect for making blockers or triggering your Celestials, and Temporary Truce simply gains you 2 life and Unexpensive Spirit. Overall, the new support heavily bolsters Celestials, and the Knights are a fine new deck that will no doubt see experimentation with their playstyle or just their very nice art. Haven remains a fine powerhouse and will no doubt only get stronger going forward. But this is only half of Set 2. You'll have to stay tuned for Part 2 where we discuss the Astral, Tidal, and Abyss strategies. so stay tuned for that. As always, the Discord link is down in the description below, and I'll see you all in the next time. Goodbye.